Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The topic of today's presentation is the research problem. Now, what actually is a research problem? What is its importance? The formulation of research problem is the first and the most significant step of the research process. It is like the identification of a destination before undertaking a journey or the foundation of a building. The type and design of the building are dependent upon the foundation. Now you need to understand this phenomena that whether you are planning a journey. So, what are the arrangements that you are planning, you are having for that journey? Have you got a good car? Do you have got the expertise to drive the car? What are your logistical arrangements? You've got the money that is needed for the journey, and you've got other arrangements. You've got the plan of the traveling or the traveling plan where you are going to stop the journey in between, then where you are going to reinitiate the journey, we are going to stop by for lunch, or all these things, these to be kept in the mind. And similarly, if you are planning to build up a building, then what is your how you are going to plan the foundation of the building, because it's very important. If you've got that you arrange everything, you know the building plan, where you're going to keep your offices, where you're going to keep your restrooms, or the toiletries, or the kitchens. So the planning is very much important. Whether moving ahead for a journey or founding a foundation, planning to prepare a building, to make a building, it's very much important that you plan everything, every small details, every step, uh, in a way to avoid any problem during your journey or during the making of a building. So, if your arrangements for the journey are complete, you know everything. You've got the logisticals, you've got the car, you've got the tank full of petrol or gas, and you have got the plans of the moving. And similarly, foundation is well designed or established and strong. Then you can expect a safe journey and a good building. Research problem is like that. All of your research, it depends upon your research problem and its formulation. If your research problem, it is formulated up to the good standards, you know your direction, you know your study plan, you know your resources with you, you know the disbursement of that, or the utilization of the resources, you know the sampling strategy, you know the study area, and you have got all the plan with you, then the research problem is going to be an easy journey. The way you formulate a research problem, it determines almost every step that follows. The type of the study design that can be used, the type of sampling strategy that can be employed, the research instrument that can be used or developed, and the type of analysis that can be undertaken. The main sources are in most of the research, it revolves around four P's. These are the people, problems, programs, and phenomena. People can be a group of individuals, organization, communities, patients, participants of a study, and problem can be an issue, need, it can be a situation, it can be a disease, it can be a microorganism, it can be a part of the microorganism which is creating a problem, or it is an issue to be addressed. And the programs can be content, structure, outcomes, campaigns, awareness sessions, awareness workshops. And phenomena actually is the cause and effect, or it shows the relationships. Uh, and it can be anything. It can be above of the thing. Some of the examples are it shows the relationship or cause and effect. We'll talk about all those things in detail. Most of the research problems, they are based upon at least a combination of the two P's. Every research study has got two aspects. The first one, the people. They provide you with the study population, whereas the other three P's, they furnish the subject areas. Your study population and individuals, groups, or communities, the people from whom the information is collected. And your subject area is a problem, program, or phenomena about which the information is collected. Like your study population is the people, can be individual, organization, or groups, or community. and these provide you with the required information, or you collect information from them or about them. That's the importance of the people. Let's say, like the previous example lecture, we got the prevalence of HCV in the youth of Ahmedabad. So the youth of Ahmedabad city is the study population, and we are going to collect information about the hepatitis C virus from the population and about the population. Whereas the subject area, it can be a problem, program, or phenomena, and these can be information that is you need to find answers to your service research questions. These three P's are going to be your subject areas. What are the considerations in selecting a research problem? Whenever you are planning, whenever you are selecting a research problem or a topic, the important considerations are, they are more or less the same to the previous things, but they are mostly related. The first one is the interest. A research endeavor is usually a time consuming, it involves very hard work, possibly unforeseen problems. And it is very much important that you select a topic that is of interest to you, yourself above all. And whereas if you select a topic which is that it does not interest you, then it could become extremely difficult to sustain the required motivation, put in enough time and energy to complete it. So the most significant first foremost thing is that your interest in your selected topics. You should not impose a topic which is not, you are not comfortable with. You should select a topic about which you have got the motivation, you got the drive to complete it, to work on it. Your interest should be uh, in that topic. Then the magnitude. You should have sufficient knowledge about the research process to be able to visualize the work involved and narrow down the topic to something manageable based upon the time and resources. It should be specific and clear. So you should have your topic select or work plan within the limitations of the logistical arrangements that you have got. You should have sufficient knowledge about the topic, and you should be very much able to, you have an idea that, oh, okay, I might do this step, then these can be the possible outcomes. This one outcome, this is the second outcome, and how I going to get out of the first possible outcome or the second outcome. You should have that all that plan. You should, and within the time and resources you should plan, you need to plan it. Then other consideration in selecting the research problems can be measurements of the concept. If you are using concept in your studies, for example, in quantitative study, make sure you are clear about its indicator and their measurement. For example, if you plan to measure the effectiveness of health promotion program, you must be clear as to what determines effectiveness and how it will be measured. So it's in any field, you should be aware of the different concepts, different measurement concepts. You should be able to use different, these days it's easy to determine the effectiveness or importance, to measure the associations on a very on a very minute levels using different softwares, different uh, measurement tools. So it has become easier these days to measure some concepts based upon the variables and their effectiveness. Level of expertise. Make sure you have got an adequate level of expertise for the task. Allow for the fact that you will be learning during the study, and you may receive help from your supervisors, other laboratory staff, your colleagues. But remember, what you need to do most of the work yourself. It's you who is going to do yourself. So you need to develop the expertise. Availability of data. If your topic entails collection of information from secondary sources, office reports, client reports, census, other published reports, WHO reports, CDC reports, you make sure that this data is available and in the format you want before finalizing your topic. So it's not like you complete first phase of the study and then you are okay. Now I have to collect data, secondary information. I have to collect some research. Everything. It's most of the time you do two or three steps simultaneously. because we need to work within the time frame of our research. So availability of data is important. Then the ethical issue: in the course of conducting a research, the study population may be adversely affected by some of the questions which you may ask by the questionnaire that you might be presenting to the study participants. And they can be deprived of an intervention, expected to share sensitive and private information. So you need to plan how ethical issues can affect the study population and how those ethical problems can be overcome. It should be thoroughly examined how you are going to question the participants, how you are going to ensure their privacy, the answers they have provided. So there are different considerations, different steps that people like. Most simple one is you give certain specific number to a participant name, so that your information is not disclosed. It's just only with you, and then you present it. No, you are not going to present the uh, original details, the name, and you know these details of the participant, so that they can be identified. You have to make sure their privacy is not compromised. Steps in the formulation of research problem: it includes, you need to identify a broad field or subject area of interest to you, dissect this broad area into sub areas, select what is most important to you, raise questions about that, formulate objectives, assess your objectives, double check everything. Now, just brief about all these steps. For identification of a broad field or subject area, it depends. It is these broad area is identified keeping in view the supervisor expertise, blah, blah, blah. Like I've said in my previous lectures, that you need to work within the expertise of your supervisor. That's very much important. And then your expertise, like if you have got expertise in mycology or bacteriology or specific interest and expertise in virology, and then for a PhD degree, you out of nowhere you plan, okay, I'm going to work on now on parasitology. So it's not advisable to work on something which you don't have got the expertise in, and the same applies on your supervisor. Your interest is very much important. You should identify a broad area of your interest, time available, resources, and then it's better to identify a broad field of research, like whether you're planning to work in microbiological science, in virology, you're planning to work in bacteriology or mycology or parasitology. That depends on all the above factors. Then dissect the broad area into sub areas. Narrow down the field into sub areas. Like if you are planning to work on virology, whether you are going, it can be HIV, HIV that you might be working on coronavirus, all bacteriology, it's bacteriology, then you can be working on cholera, you can be working on tuberculosis. So, and the next step is the aspect of the subfield is to be decided, that whether you are going to work on the epidemiology of the viruses that you might be studying, it's the diagnostic procedures that you might be, new diagnostic procedure you might be identifying, or you might be working on some therapeutic or research or treatment plan that you might be assessing against specific viral or bacterial disease. So an aspect of the subfield is to be decided whether you are planning to work on a part of a virus, part of a bacteria, the surface proteins. In preparing list of sub-area, you should also consult others who have some knowledge of the area and literature in your subject area. The next step is like what is most interest to you. It is neither advisable nor feasible to study all sub-areas. You cannot study all aspects or related to a study, or your research. So out of the available sub-areas for research, you need to select issues or sub areas about which you are passionate. You want to inquire something about them. You want to further analyze, further put down efforts into the research. That is very much important. This is because your interest should be the most important determination for selection. Then another option is to start with the process of elimination. Go through your list and delete all those sub areas in which you are not interested, you are not, you don't like them that much. Then finally you need to work on something that is manageable considering the time available to you, your level of expertise, and other resources to undertake the study. Raise research questions. At this step, you ask yourself, what is that I want to find about in this area? Make a list of whatever questions that come into your mind relating to your selected survey area. And then, for example, like what is the frequency of HCV in youth of Aptabad and what factors are contributing to it? So you have planned that your broad area, your main area of research is the virology. And then for the people which are going to prepare to give you study participants, study population is the youth of Aptabad city. So what aspect of that is are you going to study, or is the frequency or prevalence of HCV in youth of Aptabad, and what are the different factors that can be contributing to it? That is your going to be your research question. Or what are the possible detection methods of coronavirus using antibody testing methods? What are the cheapest, quick, reliable, most reliable methods? So that can be again by virology field, diagnostic techniques that you are planning to work on, and then different factors that you have got in your mind about your research work. Then formulate the objectives. Formulate both your main objectives and your subjective sub objectives which grow out of your research questions. And the main difference between objective and research question is the way in which they are written. These research questions are obviously written in the form of a question. You know, what is the impact of that specific intervention that you might be preparing, or what are the different factors that are contributing towards the prevalence of HCV in Aptabad? What is the cheapest, what is the quickest or the reliable possible diagnostic technique against coronavirus? So these are the research questions. Whereas objectives, they transform these questions into behavioral aims by using action-oriented words such as to find out, to determine, to ascertain, to examine, like in the previous example, uh, to assess or to find out the distribution of HCV in male and female youth of Aptabad, to find out different risk factors which are contributing towards the prevalence of HCV in Aptabad, or what are the to determine this different possible methods for the detection of coronavirus using antibody testing methods, to find out the a way to find out the most cheap or the cheapest or the quick and reliable technique which can be used for the diagnosis of coronavirus. These objectives they start up with to find out, to determine, to ascertain, or to examine. If you have only got one research questions or only objectives, but you can have only research question or objectives. It's not necessary that you need to have both of these at the same time. But keep in mind the requirements of your institution for research proposal. That what does your research institute or your institute it directs you whether you need to write down just the research question in your research synopsis or proposal, or whether you need to write down the objectives. So it depends on your institutional requirements as well. Formulating objectives, it also involves that the main objective is an overall statement of thrust of your study. It is a statement of the main association and relationships that you seek to discover or establish. We are going to talk about it. And the sub-objectives are the specific aspects of the topic that you want to investigate within the main framework of your study. And the subject objectives should be numerically listed, worded clearly and unambiguously. Make sure that each sub-objective contains only one aspect of the study. The objectives should start with the words such as determine, point out, ascertain, to measure, to explore. Assess your objectives. Now examine your objective to ascertain the feasibility of achieving them in the light of the time, resources, financial and human, manpower and technical expertise at your disposal. This is the next step. You need to assess your objectives within all those things. And finally, double check. Go back and give final consideration to whether or not you are sufficiently interested in the study and have adequate resources to undertake it. Ask yourself, am I really enthusiastic about the study? Do I really have enough resources to undertake it? Answer these questions thoughtfully and realistically. If your answer to one of them is no, reassess your objectives. It is very much important. Like, you should be enthusiastic about your study. You should be passionate about this research work. If your answer is no, then you've got a problem. If you don't, like, your next question is, do I really have enough resources? If your answer is no, whether it's because of the time, because of the financial aspects, because of the infrastructural requirements that your research work requires, it needs. If your answer is no, then it's going to be a big problem for your work. You need to reassess your objectives. You might need to delete some of the objectives, let's say, to save time or the resources. That depends on you. For example, we have got like some these possible topics like detection and molecular characterization of carbapenem and colistin resistant Acinetobacter species. Now, a hypothesis about this study is that antibiotic resistant Acinetobacter species Baumannii strains, they have recently become a significant threat to the public health throughout the world, since these strains are developing resistance to antibiotics and will continue to be a major problem for the future. Following of the factors, they may include antibiotic-resistant Acinetobacter baumannii strains in the disaster. The crisis of resistant strains is due to the misuse of antibiotics. Overuse of antibiotic may lead to the emergence of resistant strains. These can be the factors. Now, the aims and objectives of the study is to isolate and identify Acinetobacter species from patients at a Foju Foundation Hospital in Rawalpindi city of Pakistan, are to determine the antibiotic resistant profiles against carbapenem and colistin by detecting carbapenem and colistin resistant genes. These are the objectives based upon the hypothesis that is presented that antibiotic resistance is developing in Acinetobacter species. It is going to be a threat, and it can be this reason is it might be because of the misuse of the antibiotics, or overuse of the antibiotic has led to the emergence of resistant strains, and then the objectives are they are presented based upon that. Another possible research problem or topic is more molecular detection of mycobacterium tuberculosis in suspected TB patients of district Swabi and Nowshera of Pakistan. These are two districts of Pakistan. Tuberculosis is one of the most serious infectious diseases and a considerable public health problem due to its high risk of person-to-person transmission, morbidity, and mortality. The global control of TB and multiple drug-resistant tuberculosis has created an urgent need for timely and effectively diagnostic methods, effective diagnostic methods. Now, the aims of this study is to determine the molecular prevalence of Mycobacterium tuberculosis in suspected TB patients of the two districts, then to determine the frequency of the known risk factors in confirmed cases of tuberculosis. Another objective is to assess the resistant patterns of isolated Mycobacterium tuberculosis to rifampicin. So the first objective you can write down your first objective is the main objective, and then the two objectives can be they can be numerically placed as the sub objectives. Thank you so much for listening to this lecture.